Okay, good morning. Uh, anyway, this is lecture two of production inventory control, IET 4820. Um, I just got through my other session this morning, and I did a recording, and the sound came out terrible. So anyway, I hope the sound's good here. I just had to re-record everything from the first session, so hopefully I don't have to do it here. This is where last time we left off. We talked about the black swan, and what the COVID-19 pandemic did to the supply chain, and then we really kind of getting here. We're talking about how to complete supply chain agility. All right. So this is here kind of lessons that we learned from pandemic 19, COVID-19, a pandemic, and how it affects production and inventory control. So we last time we talked about the VUCA, so volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. How it affects the global supply chain. So what we're going to do now is actually drill down into each one of those, and what we want to do is come up with a rapid response recovery plan, because like I said, the black swan hopefully will never happen again, but I mean, in your lifetime, there's a chance that it will. But the a normal course of life is definitely a supply chain and inventory production control life. You're going to be dealing with the effects of VUCA. There's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. The degree it happens, can vary quite a bit, but you need to be prepared. And in your production inventory control is have the plans to be able to react to these four elements. So part of what you're doing here, organizations creating a business continuity plan. So usually it should be like you look at Murphy's Law and say, not if it happens, but say when it happens, what are you going to do? All right, so I'll cover a little bit of that here. I mean, we can't get into a total detail, but I'll try to definitely introduce some key elements. And one of the first things that maybe in your studies, maybe you heard about FMEA, failure mode and effect analysis. If you've taken a quality course, you probably heard about it. But this is it's a great tool, and it doesn't get utilized as much as it should. So I'm going to take the time here in this course here to really introduce you to it, and how you can apply it in production inventory control. But it's actually a tool that you can apply in many phases of your business life. So if you can learn how to master this tool, it's going to be a great benefit for you throughout your career. Trust me. Again, I'm speaking from experience. This is a tool that you really want to understand and feel very comfortable in using. So we look at the potential impact of VUCA. So I'll use this the FMEA tool, kind of to do this analysis. So, this is a little bit of abbreviated FMEA, but this is the key things that you look at. Looking at risk. What's going to be the failure mode of that risk? What's the potential causes of that? Potential effect. How can you detect it? The severity, the occurrence. Again, the detection. And then we'll calculate a RPM, which is the RPM is the risk priority number, and we'll cover that. All right. So the first step, do a FMEA analysis. Number one, identify what the risk is. Okay, so here what the risk we're going to look at is the VUCA. Each one of those being a risk. Identify the process failure modes. So where's this risk going to cause your process to fail? Oops. So you calculate the severity, the impact of the failure mode. You'll rate this a 1 to 10, with 10 being the most severe and 1 being, the least or a no impact. Then you calculate the likelihood that this failure will occur. So this is the, you're looking at the occurrence. So 10s, that's very likely that's going to occur, that this failure mode is going to occur. 1 is very unlikely that this failure mode will occur. Identify potential causes of the failure mode. Identify potential effects of the failure mode. So, if they happen, what's going to be the effect on the process? Is there any way to detect it? Okay. So, if this failure to happen, is there any way in your current process that you'll be able to detect it and, stop it? So you'll calculate the effectiveness of any detection method to detect this failure mode that occurs. 10 being, if it happens, is very unlikely you'll detect it, and 1 is very likely to detect and capture. And then you calculate the risk priority number, the RPM, and the risk priority number just prioritizes where you need to focus your attention for the countermeasures. So RPM is just the severity rating times the typo error here. So the RPM should be the severity rating times the occurrence rating times the detection rating. So let me actually see if I can. Yeah, sorry about a little bit of break, but it's actually it's important that you get this changed in the document here, because it's just cut and paste error on my part, and I didn't catch it when I first read it, proofread it. So anyway, the RPM is equal to the severity rating times the occurrence rating times the detection rating. So let's look at volatility. So volatility is defined as a tendency for things to change quickly and unpredictably. So within production inventory control, for things to change quickly and unpredictable, it's difficult because you're having time to react. So if you have to reschedule production or worry about purchasing items, whatever, you don't have much time to react. I went here and did a cause and effect analysis, and that potentially the supply chain disruption associated with volatility. So look at the chart down below. Is so your failure mode is demand. Okay, so the potential cause is customer demand. So if the customer demand increases or change, what's the potential effect? Part shortages. Okay, because you get a real increase in demand, or you get a change in the product mix. You might not have the parts on hand. So this is a big one here. The other one could be customer demand is unlevel production. You got more demand than you got capacity for, or you got capacity on a different line or different workstations that you were not planning for. So the detection method currently for most companies would be manual intervention. Just to catch it, just kind of really accidentally catch it, or just be reading an email or whatever and catch it. So the for the first one, like the part shortages, the severity of that would be a 10. How likely it to occur? The bad thing is, it's very likely to occur. Okay, and as we get on in this, we'll show in safety stock how we try to help prevent that. Detection is usually is almost always going to be after the fact, so the detection is not going to be good either. So that gives you RPM score 900, which is you'll be able to, what you see here already is very high. Unlevel production severity could be 8. Occurrence again, it's fairly likely to happen. Detection is after the fact. So RPM score 648. Okay, volatility, artificial demand. Okay, this is what we saw in COVID-19 with people panicking on customers or consumers, buying toilet tissue. So you create part shortages. The detection method you had for panic on customers is basically 0. Severity when it happens is 10. But luckily, this is not going to happen. This happened. This panic customer. This is definitely a black swan type of event. So chances, it shouldn't really happen again. So it shouldn't really occur. Detection basically 0. Okay, so but then still it gives you a score of 100. So right now it would not be your top priority to look at. If you have supply, volatility issues, supply delivery issue could be part shortages. The only way you detect it probably would be for the supplier to let you know, hey, I'm behind, which happens, but still, you're kind of vulnerable there. You kind of his discretion, or how good your supplier is. Severity is 10. Occurrence, good chance that can happen. Detection, so you're totally dependent on the supplier. That gives you an RPM of 630. Another thing would be supply quality. All of a sudden you get a shipment in on time, right quantity and everything, but there's some defects in the shipment. So again, those defects end up equating to part shortages. You might catch that at incoming inspection. Most companies don't do 100% incoming inspection on everything. So, severity happens is 10. Possibility happens, occurrence, quality, if you got good suppliers, it shouldn't happen that often, but you're doing this for a company, the occurrence might be very high. You might have some suppliers that are quality. And actually, almost all cases you might have, company, you might have a supplier or two that really is not, producing the quality that you really want. So anyway, you get a RPM at 420. Transportation disruption is it could be geopolitical, it could be part shortages, and this is it could be where because of protests or whatever, they shut down a port, they shut down a highway, and definitely, in my experience, this is something that happens. Okay, severity is 10. It doesn't happen. Occurrence, it depends on what country you're in. Some countries, it occurs a lot more. So, you have to look at your tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. I mean, this is not your number one supplier. This is what happened again on the pandemic, is that the tier 1 suppliers are probably okay. It's the tier 2 suppliers, the people who are supplying the material to the tier 1 supplier, is where the difficulties came in. Okay, again, so this is, I gave it a current tier 2, but really it depends on, if you're buying from, overseas, China that we've seen here. I used to live and work in Thailand. In Thailand, we had quite a bit of protests. So in Thailand, it would probably be at least a 5 or 6. Detection, very difficult. I mean, by the time it happens, it's kind of too late. Okay. So, in this situation here, based on the currents, I got 180. Okay, I mean, if I'm looking at U.S. sources or European sources or whatever, North American sources, it's probably not too big of a occurrence. But looking at Asian sources, depending on the country, it could be high. Okay, so here for volatility, if I can prioritize, and number one would be how to look at demand volatility. And we'll see, this is going to be demand volatility is one of the number one issues that you'll see in your supply chain and in your production inventory control. And we'll go through this in detail, how we try to account for that, how we will account for that in safety stock. So top priority here is demand volatility and the part shortages that create. The second highest one here is the same demand volatility and unlevel production, and then the supplier volatility. All three of these we will definitely address in our safety stock calculation. So, going back to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, we look at this is Six Sigma terminology, but it's your issue, in this case being supply chain disruption, it's going to be a function of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So one way to address that is the cause and effect diagram, also known as the fishbone diagram. So here, maybe I should have probably shown this in a different order. But what I've done is, that supply chain disruption. So look at volatility. So what I got down here is kind of what I showed on the, not kind of, is what I showed, well, for a major extent on the FMEA. Demand variability, supply variability. So right now I'm looking under the category of volatility. So we've got demand variability, supply variability, artificial demand, dependent demand, cost inflation, geopolitical, transportation disruption. And then I did the same thing, and these will show up later in the FMEA. I did it for uncertainty, but you'll see an uncertainty there. The same, what called the usual suspects, I guess. Demand variability, supply variability, artificial demand. Okay, you also got your manufacturing process being reliable. You have staff turnover, pandemic, factory fire, Mother Nature. Going down to the bottom here, looking at complexity. Global supply chain, being have visibility of everything, having functional silos, lack of communication, data, being able to separate the trivial many from the vital few, complexity, lack of standardization, which product portfolio, processes, and method. Ambiguity is just global sourcing, transparency. Processing time, uncertainty about probabilities, performance, cause and effect confusion, not being able to really focus on what the root cause is. So Yeah, I probably should have showed this, and maybe I can go back and change the sequence. This would probably have been best to show this before I got into the FMEA. And I'm not sure to repeat. So this course, this is the first time this course is being taught, by me, but also the course material, I developed it. Okay, so this kind of in a way, you guys are the you guys and girls are the guinea pig. So as I go through this, I'll see stuff like changing this slide or whatever. So anyway, we'll have to add a little flexibility because this is a course that I developed based on my experience. So I will be catching some things I can improve as part of continuous improvement, and we'll definitely cover that later in this section. So uncertainty is a lack of certainty. It's a state of limited knowledge where it's possible to exactly, describe the existing state, what might future outcome, and more than one possible outcome. So it's kind of the lack of predictability. So here, number one at the top of the list there at 900 is demand. Customer demand, part shortages. So you got the same score on on the volatility. You got artificial demand, same score. Supplier performance, same. Mother Nature, which could shut down a tier 1 or tier 2 supplier, or even your self-manufacturing facility. Supplier quality, and like here, a factory fire. I mean, is it could be called a fault in wiring. The potential effects, 100% shutdown for a long period of time, really. And one way to detect that is to have safety walks and, going through the facility, looking for stuff that, trying to be proactive. So, like factory fire, severity is definitely, a large 10. But, the occurrence is, factory fires happen, but it don't happen, that often. Detection on safety walks. Of course, the better job you do, then the better you can detect it. But here, we're seeing the same thing on uncertainty. Number one priority would be, how to, to mitigate, changes in customer demand. Again, we'll cover that in the, in the safety stock, supplier performance. The second one, we'll cover that during the safety stock. Mother Nature, won't cover that too much, but we'll cover supplier performance overall. So I would say we definitely will cover that one also, and we'll also look at supplier quality. Complexity. So the state of not being simple. Okay, part of something that's complicated or hard to understand. So demand variability, part of the complexity is you got too many SKUs. You're not doing ABC. We're not really covered the Pareto analysis yet, but we will definitely be covering it in a module here. It might be the second. Might be number 3, I guess. But anyway, we'll cover this in detail. It's a very interesting phenomenon that again, it's something that you hopefully carry with you through your career. Excuse me. Lack of supplying transparency. This is definitely something that we saw on the COVID-19, where some suppliers, like medical device, pharmaceutical companies really didn't have good transparency of the tier 1, and definitely didn't have good vision of their tier 2. Okay, so here I give a severity of for lack of transparency. Severity is 10. Current, better than 50% chance. Can you detect it? You can, but currently most companies are not set up to do it. Okay, should it be something that you look into? Most definitely. Okay, one thing, because of complexity, you can get loss of productivity, lack of standardization of the portfolio, but also even of the work standards. So your orders can be late. You might be able to catch this from process audits. but the severity is pretty high, 8. Occurrence fairly often. Detections not so good. Because most of the time with process audits are more kind of like checking the boxes than really going out and trying to address root causes and resolve the issue. Part shortages, lack of standardization. You're buying too many parts, or the more parts you buy, the more chance you got for for part shortages. And you got part shortages, you always got a chance of a line being shut down. So that comes out again with, not again, but it comes out with a fairly high RPM of 540. Data paralysis. And we'll talk about this definitely when we get into the emerging technologies about the big data and everything. And we'll go through the Pareto analysis, and definitely, I got some very strong point of views on this. But so you look at complexity here, and actually all the RPMs is pretty high, not high as the 900 that we had on the demand variability of that we call part shortages. But here we got demand variability that would cause capacity loss with too many changeovers. Okay, so seal complexity is definitely a issue to be concerned to address. Ambiguity, which is inexactness. Okay, the quality being open to more than one interpretation, the inability to accurately conceptualize threats and opportunities before they become lethal, lack of understanding fundamental principles that drive risk, and the haziness of a reality, the potential of misreads, and the mixed meanings of condition, cause and effect confusion. So actually these are all items that we saw on the fishbone there. So the failure mode, demand variability, unforecasted demand, part shortages. Again has a high 720. So again, demand variability, something we should definitely be looking at. Supply chain transparency we talked about. Supplier performance we talked about. Reacting to bad info and data. A lot of times, our data could be, give us wrong information. So we won't really get into it, too much in this course, but there's a thing called measurement system, assessment, where you're looking at how good your data is. Okay. It shows like that one shows that RPM 486, which is fairly high, but we had a lot of those already in the 900, 700, 600 range, so would not be a top priority. And then reacting to bad info data. So you got a cause on the confusion about what the root cause is, waste time in training. So that has a severity of 7, occurrence of 7, and detection. So still high, kind of 490. But as we definitely saw here, the trend is demand variability is number one. Okay, so here we're just kind of getting into 6 short-term actions to improve that demand variability management. When you in times of uncertainty or volatility. Okay, so focus on the vital few. This is on the Pareto analysis, which I said we'll actually spend a whole module covering this. So it's the 80-20 rule, the vital few versus the trivial many. But again, I won't go into too much here on this today, but it's like I said, we covered it in great detail in I think module 3. Maintain transparent. So it's creating a proactive relations with your suppliers. Again, on the pandemic COVID-19, if the like pharmaceutical companies in the U.S. have really been more more proactive with the tier 1, and actually talking to your tier 1 about the tier 2, understand where the tier 2 suppliers are. And maybe even from critical tier 2 suppliers doing, process audits, doing site audits, whatever. So really, to the transparency here is definitely, it's getting down to really understanding your tier one, and then also, having selected tier two suppliers that you're aware of. But you should have a good supplier landscape so you can really understand where the majority of your tier two suppliers are. If they're all in China, then or anywhere overseas, then it's something you might want to be addressing. Activate alternate sources of supply. Back in the 80s and 90s, and even I guess 2000s, we always want a single source. There's always kind of the economies of scale. If we have a single source, so we can focus on a single source, we can get our, we can buy it at a cheaper price or whatever. So that's maybe good, but it's very short-sighted. When you got when you limited definitely one supplier, you're a huge risk there, and we'll cover that. And it's just something where I think again the COVID-19 it kind of opened more people's eyes to that having all your eggs in one basket, such as a single supplier is definitely there's a lot of risk to your supply chain. Number 4, reduce lead times. So we talked a little bit about the bullwhip there, and actually we do our exercise, I think, in the next module, supply chain exercise about the effect of bullwhip. But everywhere that we can, to reduce the lead times, the better off we are. But at least, reduce your lead times for your A items, which will be your vital few. That we'll address in the Pareto analysis. Update inventory policy and planning. This is something that inventory policy and planning. As you go through this course, you probably see, my opinion is that we don't really need inventory policy and planning. What we need to do is look at the statistics and the mathematics of the inventory policy and planning. And I think it's module 6 that will definitely go into detail about the mathematics and statistics of production inventory control. So, if we're doing the right things, scientifically on the production inventory control, we can do a better job of controlling it. And again, keep repeating myself, and I will. I guess we get to module 3 is that focus on the vital few. There's only so much time in the day. You only got so many resources, so we need to make sure we got those resources focused in the right place, and that's what the Pareto analysis is all about. So align supply and demand management. So balancing, aligning demand management with the supply management. We'll definitely, when we get into the mathematics statistics again with our cycle stock and our safety stock, that's what we're doing. We're aligning the probabilities of some issues, or with VUCA with the supply, VUCA with the demand. We're adjusting for those in our safety stock. So we'll see that throughout the course, but definitely module 6, where we look at the mathematics and statistics, we definitely look at how to calculate safety stock, to offset some of the issues, particularly on the vital few. So, as I said here, so we'll address these actions in the later modules. We'll actually be covering all of them in a certain degree. So risk mitigation is something that we're talking about here. Risk mitigation is talking about, how to mitigate VUCA. So it's defined as taking steps to reduce adverse effects. Adverse effects being summarized as VUCA. So there's 4 types of strategies that hold unique to business continuity, disaster recovery. So the 4 strategies: one is just to accept it, one is to avoid it, one is to transfer it, and the other is to limit it. So cover these a little bit here, each one. So risk acceptance is that you really don't do anything. I mean, kind of poor strategy, but if you look in the cost to risk management is outweighs the cost of the risk itself, then what you want to do is maybe just say, hey, it's a part of life, part of business, and I'll just accept the risk when it comes. So really, this is a cost factor. So it's cost versus risk. If you think the risk and the damage that the risk would cause is not that much, then you just accept the risk, and then if it happens, it happens. So risk avoidance is the total opposite about the risk acceptance. Okay, so it's taking action to to avoid any exposure to risk at whatsoever. So risk avoidance is most expensive because you're taking a risk avoidance to everything that VUCA could throw at you. Okay, so that's probably not that might not be cost effective. Okay. If you got some critical items, then maybe for critical items, it might be that you really want to go all in on cost avoidance. But for most stuff, you don't. The cost avoidance is too costly to really to consider it. Risk transference, it's kind of like handing off the risk to a willing third party. So this is kind of you outsource, certain operations, like customer service or payroll. So this is like, that not shared service, but you're outsourcing your back office or whatever. So anyway, again, this could be good sometimes is that, you transfer some of your risk that are not core competency away to a third party. It allows you, really to focus your resources on core competency. So this, risk transference is, definitely, as I'm showing here, maybe a good option for administrative or back office type of activities. Then the last one here is risk limitation, and this is where most companies go away. So I guess you say like you pick your battles. Okay, so instead of trying to have mitigation for all of everything that VUCA can throw at you, you pick one like, let's say you pick you go by the RPN. You pick your high RPNs. That's where you put the risk mitigation in, and then your lower RPNs. You address those issues when you have the resources, but you first attack the high RPN. So this risk limitation is going after the high RPN, and making sure that you have countermeasures for the high RPN. Okay, so something that you hear about quite a bit in the news and everything is supply chain agility, and we'll talk about that. Really to be a competitive, today in global marketplace, you need to be flexible and agile. So flexible and agile is being able to respond to changes in demand, changes in the supply. So supply chain agility is defined as organizational ability to profitably manufacture and deliver a broad range of high-quality products and services with short lead times, varying broad volumes, while providing enhanced values to the customer. I mean, that's what every company's, not motto, but their vision statement should be. You want an agile supply chain. To properly manufacture and deliver a broad range of high-quality products in the shortest possible lead time, at the best cost, enhancing the value to the customer. So the customer's happy about, good value for the money, on time deliveries, very reliable deliveries, and high quality products. So, I mean, that's what a customer is looking for, and that's what you need to really, build into your supply chain. Supply chain agility's goal is to respond quickly to volatility, basis and change in demand supply across the customers and geographies. Flexible managing new product introduction. So, it's imperative that achieving agility goals that you do not disrupt the performance of the supply chain. So you should have your KPIs in place that key performance indicators that you measure. You measure customer service quality, cost, quality, and return on net assets against established targets. Okay. So to achieve agility in today's world, the following strategic questions need to be answered. How fast can the supply chain respond to demand or supply changes? Okay. Again, we'll try to countermeasures, and part of this will be the safety stock, but also we'll cover this. We will do a in-depth look at lean manufacturing or lean supply chain. So this is also how to create flexibility in your manufacturing and your supply chain processes, not just the safety stock. Okay, so how much change in demand or supply can your supply chain absorb? We'll talk about this during the statistics and mathematics. We'll talk about this thing called a Z score or Z factor, Z like Z. That is a way that we actually kind of calculate part of this. Okay, so so you need to understand how long can you absorb a shortage or whatever, and like I said, a lot of that will fall into your Z factor and how much safety stock you're willing to keep. And what's the business continuity plan? Again, this is something that so many companies overlook. Is having a really good business continuity plan, and we don't cover that too much in this course. If I have some time at extra, I'll go into this because it's a very interesting subject to me. But a lot of companies just kind of they put something down and they put it in a book and they stick it on the shelf. It's not something they can really react to, and that can definitely hurt you. And actually, I think I'll show a case proof of concept here shortly. So supply chain agility, you analyze, your supply and demand scenarios to project shortages, understand to project product shortages, understand the percentage of suppliers that are in high risk regions, prioritize options, define allocation rules. So, monitor the following crisis indicators, demand impact, how demand impact and supply impact, again, and we'll definitely be getting to the mathematics and statistics. We'll look at a lot of this, okay, and develop a demand surge in our supply disruption rapid response plan. This is the business continuity plan. Again, we won't cover that too much here unless I get extra time at the end, which hopefully we will. Okay, so you look at the agile supply chain. Go at the top here, responsive production. So be able to to change products to react fast to changes in production. Cross sourcing, outsourcing, and offshoring. Responding to shorter product life cycles. Inventory optimization. Rapid response business continuity plan, and then managing the global supply chain. So this puts it into 35 minutes, but I guess we've got time to cover the just as quick. I'll go over kind of fast here, and you can read more about it later. But here's a there's a company that just buying packaging material, cardboard. So in the kind of even the lean world or whatever, You say, well, this is a low commodity, so I don't get too too concerned about it. But this particular case study was for medical device manufacturing, and there's a term called a 100-year flood. Okay, so it's 100-year flood just means that statistically that's 1% chance of this ever occurring in a given year. All right. So so it's type flood that should only happen once every 100 year. It's kind of a rule of thumb, or just a kind of way of speaking about it. So just it's something that you don't really take care of too much because it's kind of minor occurrence. So it would be low on your RPM. But this is a Fortune 500 company that had manufacturing site in Asia, largest manufacturing facility for a $100 billion company. So they had it just like a lot of companies do for just-in-time best practices for because the cardboard was a local source, so there was no need of keeping the inventory. The source was only about 100 miles over land. So not a big deal. But the one thing is that the company didn't really didn't really have a contingency plan. They just figured, hey, cardboard hey, I'm not gonna worry about it. So they didn't really have, they definitely had a business continuity plan that, again, this is definitely a case I remember very well where, the guy had sitting on the shelf and, it was kind of something that, was actually created in a silo, but really not executionable. So anyway, so they really didn't have, if something happened to a supplier, they really did not have a recovery plan. So the situation here in this country is that this actual cardboard supplier, single supplier, was located in an area that was very susceptible to seasonal floods. Okay, so the previous year, the area has been hit by one of these 100-year rains, resulting in a 100-year flood. The flood resulting in the cardboard packaging supply being disrupted for a couple of weeks, which was amounted to the level of safety stock that was on hand. So it was not a big deal. So it was a 100-year flood. So hey, it won't happen again for another 100 years, or there's a 1% chance. Well, the very next year, I guess you say, as Murphy would have it, is the 100-year flood return. And actually, this time was actually this was really the mother of all 100-year floods. So it covered a very large area, thousands of square miles. It even shut down the international airport for weeks. Basically one quarter of the country was flooded. It required evacuation in all areas, and including the cardboard supply remained inaccessible for 3 months. Okay, so this being a low commodity item, cardboard, the company did not have 3 months of inventory on hand. So the manufacturing site was basically shut down because of this one supplier. Luckily the U.S. Domestic distribution network had enough inventory to cover most demand over this period, but sales were lost. Some customer relationship was strained. They just couldn't understand, how can I not get my shipment because you don't have cardboard? Mm-hmm. So the solution, the methodology, is risk mitigation. And the immediate solution was to qualify a second local source and actually locate that even closer to the company, to the manufacturer. And then the final resolution was actually partner with another supplier to actually establish a partnership packaging venture that was actually only just a few miles from the primary manufacturing site. Also, I'll cover this one. I'll go back to this one again in later portion, because actually is also another option that we didn't take that gets into the ABC that I'll review. But anyway, so here this is just saying, they didn't have a continuity plan, and then something just as cheap as having cardboard, because because of the strategy and not having a continuity plan, shut down $100 billion, a portion of $100 billion company. All right, so no real excuse for that. All right, so anyway, that sums up the first module here, which is kind of getting ready for the preparing for uncertainties, learning what we did from the pandemic, taking a real view of VUCA and what the impact of VUCA. So thank you for joining the session today. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, whatever, and then see you again on Thursday.